Monday Night Raw, it continues to be a very miserable experience for me. I'm talking miserable experience. And it still features all of the things that every episode of Monday Night Raw up to this point has featured, which includes overexposure of the Usos, storylines that are not over, returns of people from Black and Gold NXT that nobody knows, and excessive matches. Just matches that go nowhere. But you know how I said the Usos were overexposed? Oh, they got nothing on Alpha Academy. And it's becoming a running gag that when I see Alpha Academy, I just know that this show is about to go into the toilet. And they have been on they are the only people that have been on every single episode of Monday Night Raw since Triple H took over. Alpha Academy. Not Austin Theory. Not even Finn Balor. Not Seth Rollins. Not Bobby Lashley. Alpha Academy have been on every single episode of Monday Night Raw and given lengthy matches. Not storylines. Not storylines. There's no storyline reason for them to be here. But they're here every single week. Every single week. It's driving me crazy. It's driving me absolutely bonkers. It feels like a long rib. You know, this feels like a long joke that's being played on everybody. You gotta talk about Monday Night Raw from December 19th, 2022. The season's greetings episode of Monday Night Raw. This ain't gonna give me no Merry Christmas. Next week is a clip show, which is great. Probably gonna be better than this. It's gotta be better than this, because it will be the absolute best of Monday Night Raw. Well, it's gotta be better than this. I'm not saying that this was, the flat out god awful episode of Raw. I'm not saying that. But it ain't good. It ain't good. It's not interesting. Well, some things are interesting. Let's talk about some of the things that might be interesting. We start the show with Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns is talking about being on Raw. Kevin Owens want to get in the bloodline business. He want to bring John Cena. He's going to need more than John Cena. Now he's going to show off the bloodline's resources. He's going to make Kevin Owens' life a living hell here on Monday Night Raw. So then we got through the rest of the night, the bloodline being Sami Zayn, Solo Sikoa, and Kevin Owens. They're jumping Mustafa Ali. They jumped Andre Chase. How about that for your main roster debut? You're backstage on Monday Night Raw, and all of a sudden Solo Sikoa is just tossing you around. That's great. Just like the good old days of the NXT parking lot. They beat up Elias. They beat up Cedric Alexander. They beat up Dolph Ziggler. They beat up a lot of people on this show. It was looking pretty good for the bloodline at one point. It wouldn't stay that way, of course. The OC had a match against the Alpha Academy. Why? Because one of the Good Brothers, I think it was Gallows. I'm pretty sure it was Gallows. He's the only one that talks. He called Chad Gable a nerd during the poker tournament, so they got to have a match now. I thought that's why they had AJ Styles versus Chad Gable, because they got called nerds. But apparently they got called nerds, and all of a sudden we have to watch them wrestle week after week after week. I had to watch the Good Brothers. That's what they presented to us on Monday Night Raw this week. In the third match, the Good Brothers. So the Good Brothers defeat Master Gable and the number one guy, Otis. In bizarro world of Des Moines, Iowa, where they chant, "We want Otis." And I just remember, I was like, is this guy secretly from Iowa or something? Like, it's got to be the case, right? Like, I've never heard, even when they were pushing Otis, nobody ever chanted, "We want Otis." And I'm not saying I hate Otis. I don't. I like him more than most people. I hate this Alpha Academy thing. It's not going anywhere. I just can't stand that they just continuously, and this is what I don't like about them, because I think Chad Gable is a tremendous athlete, and now he's becoming a really good promo. But wins and losses don't matter, right? Beating anybody doesn't make their characters change. Losing doesn't make their characters change. Nothing matters. And these are the kinds of matches that should not be occurring, right? Especially not with the frequency that they do occur on WWE and AEW television. This match changed nothing for anybody that was in it. Nothing is going to change. The Alpha Academy is going to come back the very next week exactly the same way they were this week. The Good Brothers are going to come back next week exactly the same way they were this week. Nothing's going to change. Wins and losses in wrestling does not matter. You have to make them matter because the storyline is what matters. If you just go out there, you randomly win, you randomly lose, something has to change. There needs to be character shifts. At least acknowledge the fact that you lost and something needs to change. This is so frustrating. Anyway, the OC win because reasons, Good Brothers. Then they are jumped by the Bloodline. They get jumped by the Usos and Sami Zayn. Solo Sikoa is not with them for some reason. Where was he? He must have had to go to the bathroom. Anyway, Jimmy Uso said they run this business. Sami Zayn said the crowd has no problem with what they're doing because Adam Pearce is out there trying to stop them. Adam Pearce has had a problem with this all night. He even called Paul, whether it's Paul Levesque, I'm guessing it's Paul Heyman he's trying to call off the dogs. At that point, Adam Pearce is approached by MVP who wants to talk about Bobby Lashley. But because Bloodline is running nuts around the show, they decided, well, I'll get back to you. So they teased. They're trying to tickle us a little bit with this Hurt Business stuff. And I have to admit, my ears perked up a little bit. I was like, wait a minute, MVP's in Bobby Lashley's business again, huh? He in the Bobby Lashley business again, huh? Wait a minute. And then the next time I see Adam Pearce, it's in the middle of this Bloodline stuff. All right, it's a nice little seed that they dropped there. Actually interesting. Not going to complain about that. Then Adam Pearce comes out with nebulous officials. Everybody's an official, like Shane Helms, who for some reason looks more jacked in that suit than he ever did when he was actually wrestling. And he's out there, and Adam Pearce is out there, and all these guys are out there. And Sami Zayn is talking about how he doesn't appreciate the hassle that they're being given after, beating up various people on Monday Night Raw. And, but they'll leave because the message has been delivered. The point has been proven. The Bloodline run this show. They can do whatever they want. So the Usos and Sami Zayn voluntarily leave and then are attacked by AJ Styles. Just AJ Styles. AJ Styles wanted to get his hands on somebody. He went to Adam Pearce and demanded a match with any member of the Bloodline, which would have been a nice little way of, if you have to use the Usos, could have put Jimmy in here and had Jimmy wrestle AJ Styles or something. That way, you could, if the Usos had to lose a match on this show for some reason, it could have been a singles match, and then you can say, well, they're tag wrestlers. But no, they picked Sami Zayn. So it's AJ Styles versus Sami Zayn in a match that was thrown together in the middle of the show. Can't complain about the match itself. The match itself was really fun. Sami Zayn wins because Solo Sikoa gave him a Samoan spike. Gave AJ Styles a Samoan spike when the ref wasn't paying attention, which allowed Sami Zayn to win with the Blue Thunder Bomb. The match itself, perfectly fine. I have no problems with the match itself. Just didn't like how we got here. I always hated the way that these shows felt like pastiche. Like, this is a match, AJ Styles versus Sami Zayn, that you probably could have promoted. That you probably could have put some interest in. People are really, really, really into Sami Zayn right now. AJ Styles is, he's a little lukewarm at the moment. But if you put the right storyline behind it, this thing could have been a solid main event for you. Or at least a solid match in the first, second, or third hour that could have gotten some time between two guys that are over where a win or a loss may matter. Now, in this situation, the OC just lose because, that's what they do. They're 50-50 guys. They win one, they lose one. That's exactly what happened here. And they did the same thing with the Bloodline. You win one, you lose one. So The Bloodline are so dominant, they don't win all of their matches. They only win half of them. But they're incredibly dominant. Believe me, because I said so, bro. But that wasn't it for the Bloodline for the evening. Seth Rollins was cutting a promo earlier. Talked about how the Bloodline jumped everybody except him, and that he got a message for Roman and that Mondays belong to Seth freaking Rollins, which you know was going to get a response. But instead, Austin Theory came out there. Okay, he wasn't promoted. They don't ever, he doesn't really, he just pops up. He doesn't have a match on this show ever. He's still wearing a jean jacket. I don't know why he's still wearing a jean jacket. But then he says that he's the champ and that the Austin Theory era is forever. This is just the beginning, and that Seth freaking Rollins is going to pass the torch to him, or he's going to take it from his, quote, cold and legendary fingers. And that Seth Rollins has been lucky his entire career, and that he's the third most successful member of the Shield. They're not doing Austin Theory any favors. They really aren't. They really are not helping this kid at all. Seth Rollins ends up responding by asking him why is he so angry, because he's got it all. He got the size, he's got the capabilities, yada, 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 but he will never be on Seth Rollins' level. Never. Then, as they're arguing back and forth, the Bloodline appear. Now they're gonna jump Seth Rollins because he was talking that shit. Austin Theory bailed to leave Seth Rollins by himself. So Seth Rollins does get jumped by the Bloodline. And then Kevin Owens comes in to make the save. Alright, so Kevin Owens, who's feuding with the Bloodline, comes in to save Seth Rollins, who was talking shit about the Bloodline. It's making sense so far. So then they yell at each other. Well, Kevin Owens starts to yell. And the tag team match is made. The Usos versus Seth Rollins and Kevin Owens. And I said, the Usos are going to lose that match, aren't they? And I just knew it. I knew it in my bone structure. Like, they're going to lose these fucking guys. And that's going to piss me off. That's exactly what happened. That's exactly what happened. After, of course, we got a little more tongue-in-cheek fourth wall breaking Kevin Owens because, oh, you tried to steal my WrestleMania match. And then Seth Rollins was like, what are you talking about? I didn't do that. But whatever. The Usos, this match had a lot going on. It had a lot going on. You had Seth Rollins get bashed in the back of the head with the title, which would have been a good excuse for them to lose or to end this match in disqualification, but they didn't do that. They had the OC come out there and jump Solo Sikoa, so he was taken out of the match. I don't remember what the hell happened to Sami Zayn. I think he was just outside the ring. Anyway, Jimmy Uso got pinned by Kevin Owens. And the show ends with Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens staring at each other. Kind of trying to build up a tense moment between the two. And by this point, I just kind of walked away from the TV. I literally had other things to do. All right? It's not even the fact that the Usos lost. It's that the Usos just lost like 2 weeks ago. You know? It's like, it's hard for you to get over this concept that they're the most dominant tag team or that the Bloodline is the most dominant faction when they lose half the fucking matches that they're in. Maybe they shouldn't have so many matches. Maybe just jumping people would have been good enough. Maybe just, they challenge them to a tag team match and the Usos say, nope, you're not a tag team. We only wrestle tag teams. And they leave. They leave the building. Or they accept, but then they don't bother to show up. Or they accept, but they get disqualified. Or they accept, or they get counted out. For them to get pinned again, it's like, wow. Just like 2 or 3 weeks ago, they got pinned by fucking Drew McIntyre. And then Drew McIntyre had an earache or something like that, and they couldn't get their win back. So, and I get what the purpose of this is. Kevin Owens is the next opponent for Roman Reigns, apparently. So they're trying to build up Kevin Owens. They're going to have him get the rub from Seth Rollins and get the rub from John Cena. So when the Royal Rumble season happens, Seth, he's going to have wins over the Usos. He's going to have wins over Sami Zayn. He might even be the first person to beat Solo Sikoa. And then, he'll get the big match against Roman at the Royal Rumble. All right. I get why the Usos lost. I just don't like it. Because literally, you're throwing these guys out there to be the top tag team in the world. This is what you want people to believe, that they're the top tag team, not just in the business right now, not just in this company, but not just in the world. They're talking about they're the greatest tag team of all time. They just lost to a fucking two guys who were arguing an hour before this. And how are you really going to make it matter when they actually do lose the belts? If your goal is they're going to lose every other episode of fucking Raw or SmackDown, they're going to fucking lose. And guess what? They're probably going to, well, I know spoilers are out there. And because Triple H can't be that retarded, they're going to beat Hit Row on Friday. Right? So what? It's Hit Row. Who cares? It seems like if you're an official tag team, the Usos have no problem beating you. If you're made up of two single stars, literally 5 minutes ago, then the Usos have a problem. That's ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. Even if you want to use them as mid-level guys against Roman's, unbeatable, invincible nature, the Usos should have some of that too. Solo Sikoa's got it. He doesn't go out there and lose and get beat up all the time. They literally booked Solo Sikoa to be so strong that the Good Brothers have to fight him together in order to stop him. But for some reason, the far more experienced Usos, well, you leave Jimmy by himself, he lasts 2 minutes and he loses. Okay, that makes no sense. It's dumb. It's just dumb. All right? The fact that the Usos are on every fucking show, it's not quite Alpha Academy level where the Usos are working every single Monday night. No, they work most of the Monday Night Raws and pretty much every SmackDown. They are way overexposed. I get that you want the Bloodline have to have people in the ring. I get that. And Roman can't wrestle every week. But you can't put the Usos out there every week and then they lose half the fucking matches that they're in. Sami Zayn doesn't win that many matches either. So I'm kind of surprised he actually beats AJ Styles, right? But you have to take into account that they may be overexposed. Sami Zayn was on this show last week. He didn't do anything. Well, I think he might have wrestled on the show last week. Or was he? Oh, he was with Solo Sikoa last week. Solo Sikoa had a match last week. So you're overexposing the Bloodline by just throwing them in there with anybody. Not really promoting that they're going to be there. I mean, just imagine how many people who might have been excited or interested if they'd have known that the Bloodline were going to be on this show. That's why I say, hey, maybe you should promote AJ Styles versus Sami Zayn. Give people something to look forward to. Maybe promote that the Usos are going to be on this show. Now, I get they want it to seem like Roman is invading SmackDown. It's not really an invasion. He has the fucking SmackDown belt. The Usos have Raw belts. Raw belts. He got the Raw belt. The Usos have the Raw belt. Of course they're going to be on Raw eventually. Give people something to look forward to. Build it up throughout the night and then maintain their fucking heat. You can't just blow off the Bloodline's heat after every fucking show. And then they have to start all over again the next week. And then hopefully in the highlight packages when you show the Bloodline beating up everybody, you'll forget that they lost all these matches. It's ridiculous. Now let's double back to Austin Theory. Austin Theory bashed Seth Rollins in the back of the head during this match with the United States title for talking crap about him earlier. That was good. I didn't hate that. I thought that'd have been a good catalyst for these guys to lose. Is for have Austin Theory take out Rollins. Of course, that didn't happen. Now, Austin Theory, like I said, they're not doing him any favors. The only burn that they had for him was that Seth Rollins is the third most successful member of the Shield. That was the big burn. And I was just kind of like, well, it's a subjective matter. Very subjective matter. But if you watch Rampage, you wouldn't say that, I can tell you that much. If you watch Rampage, you wouldn't say Seth Rollins is the third most successful member of the Shield. You wouldn't say stuff like that. And it's a common refrain when it comes to people who don't really like WWE to keep arguing or trying to force the narrative that Jon Moxley is doing some great stuff. And look, he's doing okay in AEW. But if you really break it down, he's not doing that much. All right? He's not doing that much at all. Seth Rollins, of course, can main event pay-per-views without a title. Just off the strength of the storylines, he can main event shows. Jon Moxley barely can main event a show against CM Punk. The strength of that storyline was weak, very weak. And that's CM Punk and Jon Moxley. I mean, Seth Rollins walked into a match with Cody. Cody had one arm, had a banger of a match, no title on the line, not at all. It's hard to argue that a guy who they kept the belt on, which is being Jon Moxley, who still has some of the most uninteresting matches ever. And I like Jon Moxley. I like him more than most people do. I just don't think he's I don't think he's having a banner year, though. I think that they looked at him like a Band-Aid. This thing is going on over here. We got to put the belt on Moxley. We got to keep the belt on. We're going to have Moxley wrestle every week in matches that make no sense against opponents that aren't going to win in situations that don't matter. And he's going to come out and talk about drinking people's blood and how he's going to, perform open heart surgery on somebody or whatever. The Blackpool Combat Club was an absolute flop, and he was a part of it. In fact, he was a key member of it. It flopped so hard, William Regal left. Danielson hasn't been with them in weeks. It's hard to buy that Moxley was, wrestler of the year or more successful than Seth Rollins. I don't know. Maybe, I guess, if you care about the kayfabe part of one guy being world champion all year, then you're right. Moxley was world champion for most of 2022 in AEW. If you understand why he was world champion, then you would know that it really had nothing to do with him generating a lot of interest or being super over or being, a draw. Just kind of, he was the one guy we could trust that didn't have a scrambled brain like Bryan Danielson, that didn't have heat with the office like CM Punk, that wasn't old and flabby like Chris Jericho, that wasn't throwing a temper tantrum like MJF. He was the safe guy who showed up every week, and the crowds like him, so we keep the belt on him. It's kind of the process of elimination. Kenny Omega was hurt most of the year. Excuse me. All right. Enough about that. I just wanted to address that because I've seen a lot of people do their Wrestler of the Year posts, and so many of them are trying to downgrade Seth Rollins and how good he's been, and trying to pump up Jon Moxley, who is getting earrings ripped out of his ear for fucking Rampage matches. It's like, okay, I wouldn't give that to Sammy Guevara, but hey, Jon Moxley must like that guy. I don't even know where I am now. I got this thing in my hands. Oh, okay. So the Bloodline, that was their night. Their night was helping Sami Zayn defeat AJ Styles. Very good match. Usos versus Rollins and Owens. I really was tired, and I can't grade this match because I was so tired. And I didn't really care. And I knew the Usos would lose because it just seemed like it was following that pattern. But, so they had a rough night, let's say. The Bloodline. They 50-50. They walked out of the show 50-50 booked. So let's move on to Judgment Day. Because Judgment Day had a match with the Street Profits. The first match of the night. So the Street Profits, for some odd reason, are now being shadowed by Akira Tozawa. And I said, this is kind of weird shit that if you would have told somebody, yeah, the Street Profits are friends with Akira Tozawa, they'd have swore Vince McMahon was on crack and that he was old and demented. And I would say, wait. Vince has got nothing to do with this. Somebody in that office that's not named Vince McMahon said, you know what would be cool if they hung out together? Akira Tozawa and the Street Profits. Yeah, that sounds like fun. And everybody would be like, what? Yeah, we're going to go with that. That's what they decided to go with. The match itself, though, was good. I like the Street Profits. I like Judgment Day. Damian Priest, he's dissolved into water. We haven't talked about Damian Priest a lot since the Judgment Day started because he hasn't been the focal point. First it was Edge, then it was Balor. Now it seems to be more Dominic, Mysterio, and Rhea Ripley are the the main point of Judgment Day. It's never been Damian Priest. He's never, since him and Edge started this thing, he hasn't been the main focus. But when you watch him in these matches, he's actually still very good. He's still very charismatic. He moves very well. You know, the guy still has the potential to be a top level dude. Even though I know he's a little bit older, he still has the potential to be a top level guy later on. So Tozawa ends up throwing water or liquid of some description into the eyes of Dominic Mysterio. And Dominic Mysterio is wearing glasses because he got mist spit in his face last week. So now he's wearing the Mary J. Blige shades, you know, the beat wife shades. And for some reason, he took them off, and then Tozawa threw liquid in his eyes. The Street Profits end up winning as Montez Ford rolled up Finn Balor. I really, really like this. I thought Raw was off to a strong start when it comes to the Street Profits and Judgment Day. I'm like, this is very good. So Rhea Ripley is very upset that her boys lost. And she was more upset that Akira Tozawa is the one who threw stuff in Dominic Mysterio's eyes. So she marches up the ramp and demands that Akira Tozawa wrestle her. Akira Tozawa, being good babyface, is like, "Oh, what do you mean? I know wrestle you. I know wrestle girl." So then she punched him, well, forearm shivered him, because that's all they do nowadays. And he took a tumble, and then the Street Profits had to talk him into fighting her. And this was fun, because Angelo Dawkins is asking him, "Do you got that dog in you? Do you got that dog in you?" And then Tozawa starts to bark. And I was like, oh, fuck. So apparently he does got that dog in him. All right. Man, I hope Doc sells a lot of t-shirts with that, "You got that dog in you," because he's the first one I ever heard say stuff like that. If you don't know who I'm talking about Dr. Eric Thomas. He's a motivational speaker. And he had a long motivational speech like, "I got that dog. You know, I got that dog for being broke. Got that dog for being homeless." It's a great motivational thing. It's been out for years. But now we start seeing like the dog memes all the time where, dogs inside the rib cage and everything. It's real great. Hopefully they're buying his t-shirts. I think because he's been saying that shit for years. I don't know who picked it up and turned it into a meme, but I hope he's making some money off of this thing. Hope he get royalties off this, because it would suck if he's not. Anyway, I thought this is clearly a joke. Some female is going to come out there and help Akira Tozawa. But nope, not at all. Akira Tozawa wrestled a match against Rhea Ripley. And despite my feelings on intergender wrestling, I just said to myself, God, just make it quick. All right, just hopefully this is quick. But they did the exact same thing here that they did when Sasha Banks wrestled Reggie. I don't know how many of you remembered that. But essentially what they did was there was essentially a no strike rule on the guy. The guy can't throw any punches. He can't throw any kicks. He can counter her offense. He can slam her, maybe. But he's not allowed to throw any kind of strike. He can't throw a punch. He can't throw a kick. Now, I'm not saying that the referees enforce this rule. I'm saying there's an invisible rule that was placed upon the male wrestler that was clear to anybody who was watching, because he did not throw any punches or kicks or drop kicks or elbow smashes of any kind during this match. He basically just countered her offense. And maybe he knocked her down once or twice. I don't remember him throwing any type of strike. If you remember him throwing a clothesline or something like that, let me know in the comment section. I think maybe he threw a drop kick, maybe. But this match, the worst thing about it, not just that it was a man wrestling a woman, it was a small man wrestling a big woman, which is, the only time they think this is okay to do. But it was botchy, and this match was just plain trifling, all right? This was not a good showing for Akira Tozawa. I don't know how many spots he managed to botch in this match, but he botched like 3 or 4 of them. All right, it was quite a few. Rhea Ripley kept her offense pretty basic. They basically had a 1980s WWF match where she even put a chin lock on him at one point. She did a regular suplex. It was still impressive because, you know, it's like woman picks up guy. Um, he tried to counter a suplex and failed to do so. That's how he ended up getting suplexed. Ultimately, Judgment Day tripped Tozawa, so he took a face plant, ate some of the mat. The referee went to admonish Judgment Day, so the Street Profits jumped on him. That was a good spot. I forgot how he got Rhea Ripley down, but he was about to hit her with the big senton. She moved. Then she landed Riptide and won the match. So she defeated Akira Tozawa. It's Akira Tozawa. Nobody cares. It's the principle of the thing, you know. You got men wrestling women. So we've devolved into that now. We've devolved into men wrestling women on Monday Night Raw. Look, it's Rhea Ripley. I tend to show some favoritism to Rhea Ripley because I really, really like her. At least she won. She beat a man that nobody cares about. He's a small man too. So they tried to minimize all the things that you might complain about, with the exception of it's just a man versus a woman. They tried to minimize it. He didn't go maximum on her. You know, she wasn't in there taking spinning back fists or kicks to the head or anything like that. In fact, they even played cowardly babyface where Akira Tozawa was trying not to hit Rhea Ripley. He was even begging off at some points because he didn't want to hit Rhea Ripley. Rhea Ripley was taunting him, saying, "Come on ahead and hit me." He still wouldn't do it. You would think that, you know, Attitude Era would kick in at some point. Some guy's just going to kick Rhea Ripley's head off. And I think it's going to happen eventually. They're probably going to really build up to it. But it ain't going to be Akira Tozawa. He's not going to get over by beating up Rhea Ripley. So I like Rhea Ripley. I'm going to be biased and say it was fine. The match was awful, though, because it was an awful match. I mean, they were falling all over each other. At one point, fucking Akira Tozawa couldn't even do a leapfrog. It was real bad. It sucked. But the made sense, and they put over Rhea Ripley, so I'm okay with that. WWE they're playing a dangerous game when it comes to this intergender stuff and their sponsorships, but they're doing it in a way where they're not letting the guys hit the girls. So that's kind of the way they're getting around it. In any event, let's move on. Speaking of girls, Bianca Belair and Alexa Bliss, they had a little bit of a sit-down conversation. And the gist of it is Alexa Bliss has weird behavior. She almost utilized the Sister Abigail on Bianca Belair. So now Bianca Belair doesn't trust her. So Alexa Bliss runs down her list of all the things that's happened to her over the last 2 years. How, you know, Bray Wyatt abducted her, brainwashed her into becoming this dark version of herself, and then left her in the dark. She had to sort things out for herself. She ended up going to therapy, and now she's come back a shell of herself. And she wants to get back to being a champion, but doesn't want this to be about Bray Wyatt, because Bianca Belair was trying to sympathize with her about all the things Bray Wyatt did. And she's like, well, look, this isn't about Bray Wyatt. And Bray Wyatt is not a threat to Bianca. However, she, being Alexa Bliss, is. Then she reminded Bianca Belair that she's been winning championships before Bianca came into the company. So Bianca was like, okay, well, you know, if you think you could take this one, go for it. So they called the end to the sit-down interview, and Bianca gets up, and then she gets smashed in the face with a glass pot by Alexa Bliss. It was honestly a very good moment. Of course, there was more Bray Wyatt stuff where the moth popped on the screen, which there was a screen next to where they were sitting, and the Wyatt symbol popped up there right before she smashed Bianca in the face with that glass pot. It was an excellent heel turn. It was great. I thought it was very good. It also offers up some questions. This is the kind of good storytelling that we're looking for here. Because are we saying to ourselves that this is Alexa Bliss acting on her own? Or is this Alexa Bliss acting on behalf of her dark side? That, you know, is she doing this because she wants to? Or is she doing this because it's part of her programming, and just kind of doing this whole programming thing, and it leaves those questions open that you can't really trust Alexa Bliss anymore. That she's friendly one minute, next minute she's hitting you in the face with glass pots. And I think this feud definitely needed for something to happen, and this worked for me. This was really good. Yes, they were trying to blame Bray Wyatt for all of Alexa Bliss's negative behaviors, but then again, that was the point of him abducting her and brainwashing her and everything. It was to sort of bring out the worst in her. But now the question, of course, is that has she successfully overcome that, or has she found that as an excuse to do all of the terrible things that she wanted to do anyway? So I like this storyline. And Bianca's a good face for this, because they have been friends for a little while now. It's not they were microwave friends for 2 weeks or whatever. They were friends for several weeks as they fought against Damage Control. But over time, of course, Alexa Bliss started sort of fading further and further away, which of course led to the idea that Alexa Bliss wanted to challenge her for the title anyway. So this is really good. I have no problems with it, with the Alexa Bliss Bianca Belair thing. I thought it was very, very well done. Unfortunately, it seems like they're probably just going to go with a one and done match between the two, unless Alexa Bliss wins the title, in which case, it would actually activate an actual feud. But they certainly need to find a way to make this more than one match. Maybe it is a disqualification. Maybe there's some chicanery. Maybe Alexa Bliss does win the title. And, we can drag this thing to the Royal Rumble. I don't know. But having Alexa Bliss turn, decisively like this, and then just kind of having one match where Bianca wins and that's it, kind of takes the steam out of it, if you ask me. But we'll see what they do. All right. So I did enjoy that. Okay. Next, the winner take all match, Dexter Lumis versus The Miz. Now this match was interesting. Not the match itself. The match itself was absolute garbage, but everything surrounding the match. For instance, we were told winner take all, and it was an absurd amount of money. And up above the ring is little bags of money, clear bags where you could see money in bands of money. I'm sure that was real money, by the way, right? But we never told how much money it was. Is it $100,000, $200,000, $500,000? We don't know. So it's a nebulous amount of money. It just looks like a lot. We're not going to get the detail of how much money it was, which is important because that should tell you what's on the line. If you were playing the lottery but didn't know how much the lottery could be for, that would take away a lot of the tension. Half the reason people even pay attention to the lottery is they know how much it is, right? So you take away some of the sting from this match by saying it's a lot of money. It's a whole lot of money. It's like, how much money? Like when they did body slam challenges, it was $10,000 or $100,000 or whatever. The Miz is a multi-millionaire. Why did I just say it's $1 million ladder match or something like that? Where the Miz has to put up $500,000 and he promised to pay Dexter Lumis $500,000, and now Dexter Lumis has $500,000. So now they both put up $500,000, $1 million. That would have been made this a lot more marketable, easier to promote. Second, we got rid of TLC, no TLC pay-per-view, but we got this. So no TLC pay-per-view where, you have to shoehorn a ladder match onto the show. Oh, I hate those gimmick pay-per-views where you have to shoehorn a ladder match into the show. Only for them to shoehorn a ladder match into the middle of this show featuring fucking Dexter Lumis and The Miz. What was the worst thing that could have happened if they had a TLC pay-per-view? Roman Reigns versus Nebulous Babyface in a ladder match. Alexa Bliss versus Bianca Belair in a ladder match or something. Instead, Dexter Lumis and The Miz in a match over money. Okay, sure, whatever. The match itself, quite boring. One of the most boring ladder matches ever because nobody's going to jump off of it. So basically, they told a story around the ladder, with the ladder just being used as a weapon, which is, the appropriate way to do a ladder match. Anyway, The Miz at one point actually starts to become a little bit more dominant in the match. I think Dexter Lumis tried to leg drop him through the announce table or something like that, and the Miz moved. So then the Miz takes full control. He starts burying Dexter Lumis in gimmicks, ladders, parts of the table, chairs or whatever. The crowd chants, "We want tables." So the Miz plays. He gets a table and then he slides it back under the ring. He attacks Johnny Gargano, beats the tar out of him. So the Miz is actually looking pretty strong at a certain point in this match. And of course, the Miz tries to win, and then Dexter Lumis rises like Kane or Undertaker from the rubble, and the match continues. The big finish came with Dexter Lumis almost getting to the top, and Bronson Thick Boy Reed pulls him off and gives him a tsunami splash, and then helps the Miz climb the ladder to victory. Then the good stuff happened. Everybody who likes Jonah, Thick Boy Jonah, got deep into their feelings because he left New Japan to come back to WWE. And I don't know how many times I saw, he wrestled Okada in the G1. He beat Okada in the G1. Now he's going back to be the Miz's heavy. Like, there's so much here to talk about. For starters, the match itself, buns. Not good, all right? We could have done without the match. It was far too long. We could have did this exact same thing in a shorter amount of time, okay? I just think that the match was too long. This match probably should have gone on first. That's just my opinion, okay? This match probably would have gotten a bigger fan reaction if it had gone on first. Burying it in the middle of the show is literally the fourth match after Alpha Academy. Because you already know Alpha Academy comes out there. There's nothing good that can possibly come after that. Even though there was some good stuff that came on after Alpha Academy. But it's a good way to turn the channel, stop paying attention to the show because Alpha Academy is out there. But this should have gone on first. Start the show with the ladder match. Start out hot. We know the Miz ain't going to do Daredevil, flippity-doo-dah stuff off this ladder. We know that Dexter Lumis is not going to do that. They're going to have a solid, hard-hitting sort of ladder match, even though it was more gimmicky, comedic, or whatever. But the Bronson Reed stuff, all of the New Japan accounts that were like, this guy, he went from wrestling in the Tokyo Dome against Kazuchika Okada to now he's a Miz bodyguard. What a downgrade. I'm just looking at this shit like, these guys cannot be serious. You looked at the card of Wrestle Kingdom, right? He's not fucking on it. He wasn't going to win the G1. How many times have Western, well, he's not even Western, he's Australian or New Zealand or something like that. How many times these guys have gotten into New Japan and then they found themselves in positions where they're literally doing something that doesn't matter, right? He's not doing anything that matters here, but he's probably being paid more. Okay, the guy's probably being paid a lot more and going to be featured a lot more in WWE than he would have been in New Japan. I mean, look at a guy like Jeff Cobb in New Japan. He's been in New Japan for, 6 years or something like that now? How closer is he to being world champion or anywhere than if he'd stayed in fucking Ring of Honor or something like that? Which is what he was doing before he went to New Japan. If Jeff Cobb had signed to AEW, I'm not saying he would have been world champion, but at least they would have valued him a little bit more. New Japan isn't the greatest fucking paradise for pro wrestlers in the world. Fucking Okada's been on top for 10 years. It's been Okada and Jay White or Okada and Naito or Okada and Tanahashi for 10 fucking years. Nobody else is getting in there. Oh, but they had these short spells where it was Evil or Shingo Takagi or something like that. These times where, come and go, where somebody else is champ for a short amount of time. No, everybody knows it's going back to Okada eventually. And that's just how New Japan has operated for 10 years, maybe even over 10 years. All right. The occasional Kenny Omega spurt, the occasional Will Ospreay spurt in there somewhere in the middle, but it's always just Okada versus somebody else. I mean, this guy has been like the main event of like 10 straight fucking Wrestle Kingdoms. All right. Fucking Jonah was not getting anywhere in there. This false argument that he could have been a top guy. You know, he wasn't. Okada loses in G1 matches to nobodies all the time. You know, occasionally you'll have these stupid G1 matches where a top guy will lose to a mid-carder because that's supposed to put over how grueling the tournament is and that anybody can beat anybody. But ultimately, it doesn't mean anything in the long term. You know, didn't Shelton Benjamin beat one of these top guys in a G1 match at one point? Carl Anderson was a G1 finalist at one. You know, he wasn't going to be world champion. Come on. New Japan is the epitome of a dead-end fucking job. You weren't going to... If anything, him beating Okada in the G1 is probably the highest he was ever going to go. They're probably going to slap one of these useless belts on him. What's one of the more useless ones? The Never belt. Give him that. A Never triple tag team belt or some dumb shit like that. He's going to be a TV champion. Like, come on. Just stop it. Just stop, all right? But we know that these people are New Japan loyalists. There are no more elitists, no more stick in the ass, stick in the mud fans than the puroresu wrestling fans who think that everything that happens in Japan is so much better and so much more interesting than what goes on in the United States. Nobody cares. It's Japan. Nobody gives a shit, right? The second thing I saw a lot was how Bronson Reed didn't get a reaction. And I was like, duh. This is a guy that these people have never seen before. The entirety of Thick Boy's run has been in NXT. And most of that was during the pandemic where there was no crowd. And NXT was getting the lowest ratings that they had gotten in history. Of course, nobody knows who this guy is. Of course they don't know. Are you really surprised? You act like this guy was on the top of the business or something like that. Like he jumped shit from AEW and where he had a hot crowd and then now people are kind of like crickets. I don't know who this guy is. It's like this guy literally popped up out of nowhere. They didn't watch Main Event when he was on it. They didn't see his tryout matches. They don't know who the fuck this guy is. You know? They have no idea who he is. And it's easy heat to put him with The Miz. Now, to that point, because The Miz is so good at getting heat, because The Miz is a wizard at pissing people off, that they've become, The Miz, they just decided to surround The Miz in NXT Black and Gold shit. That's been Triple H's thing for a while. First it was, Vince did the Ciampa thing. But then it's Dexter Lumis and Johnny Gargano and now this fucking guy, this Bronson Reed guy. If it was NXT Black and Gold and it couldn't get over on its own, now Miz has to take apart the Herculean effort of trying to get over guys that are work rate guys with no fucking personality. Miz has got... That's like bringing somebody says, you're the greatest surgeon in the history of all surgery. This guy was born with his brain in backwards. You have to perform surgery and put it in there correctly. You gotta be like, what the fuck? I take this guy's brain out, he's dead. You know, I'm going to bring you, this guy who's got 3 bullets lodged in his head. You're like, this guy's fucking dead. There's not much I can do with this. I need a magic wand. I need like a fucking grimoire to save this fucking guy. The Miz he's gonna need the power of Harry Potter in order to get these fucking people over. He's not gonna be able to do it. It's too many of them. You can't just saddle the Miz with every NXT fucking washed out and then say, all right, Miz, go make them good. I mean, even he's got to be sitting there with Maurice like, can you believe this shit? Next thing, we're trying to get me over Chelsea Green. Next thing, we'll be trying to bring fucking Leon Ruff in here and say, Miz, get this guy over. It's like, fuck. What am I going to do? Like, we talked about my balls weekly. We talk about my balls. What next? Is somebody going to talk about my kneecaps? Like, what are we going to do here? I can't get over all of NXT. It's just not going to be able to happen. Right? It's just not going to be able to do it. It's too hard. Right? It's too much. It's too much to ask. Cut the Miz. I hope the Miz getting a bonus for working on all these fucking bums. All right. And I know that the Miz just happy to be there. He probably gets paid a lot of money. Doesn't matter. But he needs to be paid a little bit more because he's got to work with all these midgets and all these dudes who are bums who are never going to get over on their own. And look, I hate Thick Boy as a person, not as a personality. I think on screen he gives off the right amount of agility and look. He doesn't come across as just a fat guy. He comes across as a fat guy with some toughness to him. It's just unfortunate that in real life he's a big butterball. I know we just want to. He's a cupcake, but that's neither here nor there. I feel bad for the Miz, man. I don't feel bad for Bronson Reed because he took the money. Triple H died, he dangled the money out there. He always said he would come back under the right circumstances. Pretty much everybody said that. Well, I'd return to WWE under the right circumstances. The right circumstances is Vince isn't there anymore. So that's really the right circumstances. I see him being Brown Otis for a little while. I like Otis. He's a big, meaty guy. Otis can do good when he's given the opportunity. I think Bronson Reed can have good, solid matches if given the opportunity. But the company is becoming overloaded with mid-card guys. I'm talking, good Jesus Christ. I don't know how many times I've heard, you got to rebuild the mid-card. Vince did so much damage to the mid-card. I'm just thinking, we look at how all these people that Triple H has brought back. All these people he brought back. The only one that's even remotely doing anything was two. Bray Wyatt, who obviously is a featured star, so yes, he's going to be doing stuff. And Braun Strowman, who was a featured star before he was fired. He came back. He did a job for Ricochet, for Christ's sake. Triple H isn't even attempting to make any stars with this stuff. He's just bringing these people back and pairing them with other folks. Heavens to Betsy. We're going to talk about Bayley in a moment. But it's just unfortunate that The Miz is the guy who every time he comes into work, it's stacks of paper about how he's got to try to get over some NXT washout. What's next? It's like, bro, The Miz is probably like, the tired meme with the wrinkles under his eyes. Like, please stop saddling me with your NXT black and gold guys. And Triple H is like, no, you're trustworthy. Well, we believe in you. Stop it. This is stupid. Leave The Miz alone. For Christ's sake, let him do fun stuff. The Miz can be fun. But at least The Miz has been part of a storyline. That has been one of the things I've complained a lot about when it comes to WWE is how they just utilize The Miz as go out there and waste 10 minutes, messing with the crowd. At least here, there have been some stuff where he's actually been able to interact with other characters and it was a storyline. Unfortunately, this storyline sucked, and the people in it weren't very good, and the matches weren't very good, and the crowd did not care about this match at all, and the crowd didn't care about Bronson Reed or the twist. But okay, Bronson Reed is back. Hooray, NXT! We've reclaimed another one. Now this one actually feels good. I actually don't mind this because of the New Japan guys who their sphincters got really, really tight at Bronson Reed returning. That made it worth it. That made everything worth it. I don't care about Bronson Reed at all. But for the wrestling culture war of pissing off the New Japan guys, it worked out great. It worked out fan-fucking-tastic because Bronson Reed doesn't bother me that much, right? Him being there doesn't bother me at all. It doesn't concern me not one bit. But losing Bronson Reed, for some reason, really hurt them to their soul? Good. Fuck them. Fuck them and feed them fish heads. Good. You're in your feelings? Good. You hurt? Good. You're mad? Good. I don't care. You're an idiot. Wrestlers come and go. Get over it. If you really like him, he'll be back in 2 years probably because, it's probably not going to last very long. Make the money while you can, thick boy, because it's probably not going to last very long. Is that it for this goddamn show? Oh, no. One more. The only thing I was looking forward to on this entire show was Becky versus Bayley. I know it seems unreasonable, but because I haven't seen these two wrestle in a long time, it was literally the only thing on this show I was looking forward to. And instead of putting this match on first, or at a point where I might actually be interested, I think they dragged this into the third hour, if I remember correctly. For Christ's sake, this was the sixth match on this show. The sixth match. This was the match they've been promoting for over a week, in which there was no promo by Bayley that lead up to this match. There was a promo for Becky. We'll talk about that in a moment. There was no Bayley promo leading into the match. There was no attempt to attack Becky before the match or anything like that. It was just, this match will be happening later on in the show. And then now you have to wait through Alpha Academy and all this other kind of shit in order to get to this match. And I was greatly upset by that. And I'll tell you why. Not because of the match, though. I'll tell you why. We'll get to it in a moment. But Becky Lynch. So she cut a promo as she's walking around backstage. This is actually pretty good. I like this. Saying that she wanted the best version of Bayley. That's the one that's the solo act. And that they have a lot in common. And she ran down all the similarities, them being in NXT and all this kind of stuff. Both, breaking out and becoming big stars. And said that, if the worst thing about Bayley taking her out for 4 months is that Bayley didn't have the nerve to do it herself. And said that tonight, is it going to be 1-on-1 or 1-on-3? I was like, okay, I like this. It's basically a challenge that Becky's putting out there for Bayley to man up or woman up and face her straight up 1-on-1. And of course, Bayley doesn't do that. She brings Damage Control with her. Now to the reason why I was greatly disappointed by specifically the presentation of this match and the positioning of this match. It's because I fell asleep on it. All right. I fell asleep. This match was buried so deep into the show that I fucking nodded off. And I ended up having to watch it after. Thank God I didn't have to work on Tuesday. Otherwise, I'd just be like, I don't really. I remember the finish, and that was it. But I didn't have to work the next day. So I spent, it was a longer match, but it was pretty good. I generally liked the match. It was very good. It felt like a fight between two people who didn't like each other. There wasn't a lot of posturing to the crowd, a lot of playing to the audience. Things didn't look polished. It looked like two people who, again, were fighting each other. It looked like a really good wrestling match. I liked this. This was good. I just disappointed that they put it so late into the show without building up to it. And I fell asleep. I fucking forgot it was even going to happen and fell asleep. Of course, I woke up near the end. I woke up just at the end, actually, just as she hit the rose plant and pinned her. But again, for the benefit of this show, I went back and watched it. Now, if I wasn't doing this show, I probably wouldn't have went back and watched it. But because I felt like there might have been a storyline reason why Becky Lynch lost this match, and I was like, okay, that seems weird. I don't think that was clean. And then, of course, it wasn't. Damage Control got involved. Becky Lynch went out there and grabbed, I don't know, what was it, a monitor? And she was going to hit Dakota Kai or Io Shirai with the monitor. So the referee ended up throwing Dakota and Io out. They of course, complained. Becky Lynch and I think it was Io got into a bit of a fight where she ends up stomping on Io. Then Bayley hit her in the back of the head with the monitor, landed the rose plant, and beat Becky Lynch. So they're going to continue this feud because the match wasn't done clean. But to me, this was very good. It was a not bad show when it comes to in-ring product. AJ Styles versus Sami Zayn was really good. The Judgment Day versus Street Profits was really good. Bayley versus Becky Lynch was really good. That's 3 of the 6 matches that were on the show. Well, 7 matches that were on the show. And I think that it was very good. Those matches were very good. But the rest of the show, oh boy. Outside of Bianca and Alexa, I struggled to get through the rest of this show. The Bloodline stuff was fine, but they're kind of overexposed, and you're kind of like, okay, nothing is going to happen that matters here. Unless Roman's going to punish the Usos for losing, I don't see them losing as being anything that's going to positively affect that storyline or in any way. But the show itself was an absolute drag. I was very tired and I fell asleep on it. It was just Jesus Louise. All right, so let's. I got a couple of more minutes. I want to hold you guys for a couple of more minutes. Let's talk about some of the things that they've been tossing around. For instance, they're tossing around the idea that Seth Rollins and Cody Rhodes are going to continue their feud, maybe going into WrestleMania next year. And I say, well, it seems somebody finally decided to watch Raw from right after Hell in a Cell, where, Seth Rollins attacked Cody Rhodes before Cody Rhodes went off and did his thing, his surgery. And it's like they made it pretty clear that this feud wasn't going to end after the Hell in a Cell match. They made it pretty clear. Now, do that mean I want to see them wrestle at WrestleMania? No, I don't think so. Do I think they'll even wrestle at WrestleMania? No, I don't think so. And in what kind of match? They've already had a Hell in a Cell match. Like, what more can they do? I think that they'll probably face each other in the Royal Rumble. And maybe they'll do a match between Royal Rumble and WrestleMania. Or maybe Cody will put his title shot on the line. I still think he's going to win the Royal Rumble. And he put his title shot on the line against Seth Rollins. I think you could do something like that. And because that's old school, Cody Rhodes would probably be a big fan of that. Guy defends his Royal Rumble spot, his WrestleMania main event against his hated opponent. That could work out just fine. I like that idea. Do I like Cody versus Seth Rollins at WrestleMania? No. That feud has already been definitively decided. Cody is 3-0, and one of those he was handicapped. There's no real reason to continue this feud outside of Cody wants to get that last little piece of Seth Rollins. And you could do that in February. You don't need to do it in April. The last little thing is that there was an article floating around about Roman Reigns and a refusal to wrestle Bray Wyatt, or a refusal to be involved with Bray Wyatt. And that makes sense to me, mainly because they're doing two very separate things. I don't think Roman Reigns would want his very realistic Sopranos-like storyline to be mixed in with the supernatural chicanery of Bray Wyatt. And I think that it's actually fine for those two things to not be mixed. Not everybody needs to feud with everybody. And plus, Bray Wyatt and Roman Reigns have had 100 matches. They've had a boatload of matches. And to be quite honest, I think Roman's wrestled pretty much all of the top guys over and over again. We're staring down the barrel of him wrestling Kevin Owens again. Not a big fan of that, but whatever. I definitely think within the next year, with the new year, we definitely need new opponents. So bringing in all of these NXT guys, these Bronson Reeds, these Karrion Kross is who I love. I love Karrion Kross, by the way. If these guys eventually start wrestling Roman, that'll be fine. If Roman's just going to keep wrestling the same guys he's been wrestling, I'm not going to be happy about that. But him not wanting to work with Bray Wyatt, it's like Bray Wyatt wants to do fucking Tales from the Crypt. So yeah, I don't think that Roman Reigns wants to do that. The freeway could go this way or it could go this way. I think that Roman needs to take that off ramp that goes away from Bray Wyatt. I'm okay with that. And Bray Wyatt doesn't need to get mixed in with Roman Reigns because he can never beat him. And maybe near the end of their careers, they'll finally have a definitive match in which Bray Wyatt can actually pin Roman Reigns. Until then, forget it. But that's about it. That's all we got here. Raw was awful. Hopefully you guys had at least fun with this review. Thank you guys. Like, share, subscribe. I'll talk to you guys later. Peace out.
Mongo Slade. Best house I ever drew, Daddy.